or two key deliverables for the next presidencies to take over.
DG, I just want to know, how does the absence of the US affects the G20 unity and the outcomes?
Look, the US had apologized 2 or 3 days ago. We had expected one of them to attend. Normally you have a Sherpa and a sous-Sherpa. So we will have a Troika meeting, Brazil, the US, and South Africa quite soon, to get a sense of how we brief them firstly from this meeting, but also to get a sense of what happens in the next few months. So the G20 is continuing. The work continues in the working groups, the Sherpa work continues, and we will then have to factor in, based on levels of participation going forward, what we do with the views of the US if they may bring it at a later stage.
DG Kaya once again here from SABC News. Going back to the issues of the geopolitics, DG, have you been able to delve into those issues, especially because, I mean, we look at the fragile ceasefire between Iran and Israel, still Russia, Ukraine, and so many of these other issues as well. And as a presidency or the chair of G20, how confident are you that these issues really will not derail your agenda, especially because your agenda is very clear, especially for Global South, for developing countries in particular?
So we had a really good session. Session 2 was dedicated to geopolitical issues. What we did was we as South Africa just outlined what has happened over the last 3 years in the G20, where, for example, after not being able to get agreements in Indonesia, we got agreement on the geopolitical issues in India based by the drafting of Brazil, South Africa, and others on issues that we felt all of us could agree on, and that was the UN Charter and international law. For example, in India, we could all agree that based on the Charter, none of us could accept the annexation of land through the use of force, and that the territorial integrity, sovereignty of all states must be respected. Because this is not, the G20 is not the UN Security Council, but it can't run away from geopolitics, so that's why it's always on the agenda. Similarly, we then got to Brazil, because after, by the time we got to the very first Sherpa meeting in Brazil, the horrors in Gaza was unfolding. And we had indicated that this is a significant breach, and we then worked towards language over the period as this, and we outlined this to the Sherpas as it got worse, that we should sharpen the language to ensure that when we say all must adhere to the international legal framework, there should be no exceptions. We did not get that agreement in Brazil, and we pointed out the consequences of that because it leads to more impunity. And we've asked that we build on what we've agreed to in India and Brazil, but we now include the recommendations that, for example, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and others made in Brazil, that there should be no exceptions to who should be held accountable for international law. And there's generally agreement on that now. But we're not going to draft the geopolitical paragraphs as yet because we've got a framework that we can agree on, but that is the one that is too soon to draft, because as you pointed out, the space is very dynamic at the moment. And we're hoping to get ceasefires to stay in place. We're hoping for justice to prevail, and we're hoping for humanitarian access in Sudan, in Gaza, and other places to be championed by the international community. These were the issues that we were discussing.
Any last question before we give it a break? Yes, ma'am.
Have you decided the date of foreign affairs meetings in September?
No, we don't have the exact date yet, but we've got the UN Secretariat will give that to us quite soon.
Okay, thank you. Last question.
Yeah. DG, what are some of the issues that are emerging from your talks as a special focus away from, say, the agenda that you had for the meeting?
I think we constructed the meeting so that it covers the key agenda issues that we feel that the Sherpa meeting towards the leaders track will have to sharpen and lead into the leaders' declaration. So there's a sense that I think there was no need to discuss issues outside of what was in the formal agenda. And we kept the room intact. For example, we didn't have to have breakaway rooms or breakaway meetings. We all stayed in the same room, including the international organizations and guest countries, to discuss all of these issues collectively.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much for gracing our press briefing. DJ, just one question from SABC. I'm going to ask the other colleagues to take a break.
Okay.
We just want to do one
Just a quick.
piece to the camera,
Yeah.
as Kaya calls it.
Thank you.
Pieces.
Sorry, DJ. We know you're so busy.
busy.
We'll keep it very short. I think you can stand, DJ.
Can I stand?
Yeah.